Yeah, so what an exciting time we have on our hands this year in science and also AI and data science. And I'm going to speak to you about both of those things today. The standard disclaimer agreement, and we have some new Copilot functionality that we're in the process of putting out there. But firstly, I just wanted to mention that we are now part of this cloud software group. And just very recently, we've been spun out into our own business unit inside of Cloud Software Group, which is very exciting. So we're getting investment from the overall company. Company's about 10,000 people, about $6 billion in revenue, and we're an important part of that. And you can see we're in the visual analytics, data science, and streaming space, and we have a new website. Hands up who has seen the new website. Okay, there's a lot of people who can go and check us out. So now we have our own website. We'll be continuing to evolve this. It's got several hundred pages at the moment, featuring just Spotfire. And we just had our annual analytics forum. Hands up who has seen any of that. No, not too many there. Lots of opportunity for you to look at that. So that's featured across our new website. It was a great event. Lots of folks speaking from our customer base, as well as all the new things in Spotfire. So just winding back the clock 5 years to 2018, where we started our AI journey. I wanted to show you those beginnings and where we're headed now. So in Spotfire 10, we introduced a recommendations engine that allows you to get started with Spotfire by suggesting certain analyses that you might have for the data that you've loaded into Spotfire. So that's the hot word then was augmented BI or augmented analytics. And what we did there, and this is an example of a telco data set where we were trying to understand why people were churning. And so we click on this customer status, have you churned or not churned? Behind the scenes, Spotfire figures out what are the variables that are affecting that. And it presents those to you in the form of thumbnails. If you've been talking with someone else who churned lately, you've got a higher probability of churning. If you've got unexpected charges on your bill, you've got a higher probability of churning. And you can make a couple of clicks and you end up with a visual analysis already brush linked that shows the probability of churn from people who have been churning versus those who have not, and then what are the factors that explain that. And so you can build a Spotfire analysis by suggestions from the engine. And really behind the scenes, what we're doing there is for every one of those variables, we quickly, as soon as you load them in, we're calculating various associations between each of the variables so that by the time you get around to clicking on a variable, we've already figured out what those relationships are. We're suggesting graphs. You bring them into your analysis, and that's a starting point for you then to figure out you're going to fit a curve to that. Are you going to start coloring in different ways with respect to the variables that we've suggested? So this was our beginning. We were a pioneer in that. We had the typical competitors started to copy us in that area. But what was going on behind the scenes is Spotfire does a lot of data prep to get the data ready for that machine learning model. So if it's ordinal data, it might arrange those in different ways, or categorical, it might bin them. Time data, it might figure out the best way to introduce that into the model. Spatial data, so there's a lot of data prep going on. As soon as you open your data, there's a lot of data prep going on for the machine learning model. That prep data is handed out to a separate C++ engine that runs all the analyses, the association analyses, does the interactions. There's a test statistic, a non-parametric test statistic that those associations are ordered, and that orders the graphs that are suggested to you, and then you come back and bring those into your analysis. So at the time, 5 years ago, that was pretty innovative in terms of bringing AI into Spotfire. So how many people have used that, by the way? Oh my goodness, we have a lot of opportunity in this audience, shall we say. So what's happening behind the scenes? There's an ensemble algorithm that's doing those relationships. We find any linear, nonlinear effects, interactions on different, whatever data you bring at it. We're organizing that in a way that we can do that analysis. The non-parametric test statistics are ranking the insights, as I mentioned. There's binning strategies. The algorithm is robust to sparsity and distribution. Scales to any data set. It's a single pass algorithm, so there's no wait time involved in it. I was just up in Gothenburg before I came down here, which is our engineering headquarters, and someone had just done an analysis about how often this recommendation system is using, and of folks who are creating visualizations, more than 30% of those through our survey and analysis of our cloud environment use this, and our visualizations created, about 10% are created through a recommendation. and in the business author, that's about 25%. So based on this little survey I just did here, there's a lot of opportunity in this audience to even use a feature that is 5 years old in the product. But what's happened in the last year is kind of amazing, right? What we've seen in this world of generative AI, and you see all these words up here, this word cloud of things that you might not have even been in your vocabulary in the past year. It all started with ChatGPT right before Christmas last year. Took 1 month to get to 100 million users of ChatGPT. I think that was really, in the US at least, people over Christmas just showing ChatGPT to their families, because I know that was a big focus of our family get-together, was just, what can I do here? When my brother-in-law was on a board of a local town in Virginia, and he had a to-do task of how to represent the history of the town and what they're going to do going forward. We just typed that question to ChatGPT. It's like, wow, I just don't have to do that work anymore. I can take this to my local board meeting. So lots of fun over Christmas last year. And really, if you look at what's happened this year, 2023, generative AI apps are on fire. There's no doubt. This is a public phenomenon. Co-pilots are everywhere, starting with the GitHub pilot. And I'm going to talk today about what we're doing with a Spotfire co-pilot. There's been about $18 billion of VC investment into this space. OpenAI, I live in San Francisco, about a mile from the OpenAI headquarters. This is 300 guys in a little building downtown San Francisco. I noticed on the weekend they're going to do an initial private offering at an $86 billion valuation. Not bad for 300 people to have that sort of a valuation. NVIDIA, a company who builds chips for this type of market, is now worth more than $1 trillion. And they presented with me at an event at our campus in Palo Alto just a few years ago. And I was like, man, I should buy some stock in this company. They're really doing some innovative things. And we started to do a little bit of a partnership around Python and CUDA and so on. $1 trillion market cap. That's pretty crazy, right? And so on the research side of things, GPT-4 has really validated this idea of reinforcement learning with human feedback. And when that came out at the beginning of the year, it really was a proprietary model for OpenAI that was dominating the landscape. So what's happened in the rest of the year is that there's smaller models, better data sets, longer training context, and we're seeing open source models, in particular the Llama 2 model, which was open sourced by Meta recently, outperforming some of the proprietary models. So that's pretty exciting that now we're getting those models into the open source that we can build upon ourselves as scientists and data scientists. We are starting to run out of data. So these models are trained on the entire internet and the entire digital knowledge of the human race, and that is continuing to grow, and those data sets are a little bit continuing to grow, but we are running out of data, and the next frontier is really corporate video and also synthetic data. Now that brings me to Spotfire Copilot, because we are starting to ingest all of our Dr. Spotfire, all of our videos, our training documentation, and I'm going to give you a preview of what we're doing in this regard. But it's not just us around this multimodality of putting text in and getting images out that is the next frontier and unleashing video data into the training sets. It's also your world. And I'm really enthusiastic to speak to anybody who's working in diffusion models. I just did a little bit of work to verticalize this talk to this audience today, and I'm amazed to see what's happening with large language models and diffusion models in the areas of molecular biology and drug discovery. And essentially what's happening, from my understanding, at least in reading over the weekend, structures, chemical structures that have efficacy are being denoised, actually out into noise. And then once you have the noise, they're being trained back up to find similar structures that might have efficacious results. So this is a fascinating implementation or application of large language models and neural nets, and I'd love to learn more about it. And so if you see, so I'm going to get into that. So those are the areas of investment, finance, and research. I have to make a few remarks about politics and safety because people are worried about that with AI. And as you can see, even just this announcement yesterday from France about the new safety guidelines being applied in that country, and really the world is starting to divide up into different regulatory camps. Big AI labs like the hyperscalers are sort of defining the standards along with governments. We are a little concerned about the chip war that's going on. At least in the US, we're trying to mobilize allies, and we are worried about China and Taiwan. You know, TSMC, which is a huge Spotfire customer, by the way, they're the guys who can manufacture the most complex designs. And so you've seen some of the chip designers like AMAT aren't manufacturing, they're designing and giving those designs to TSMC to build. So there's lots of IP and innovation in Taiwan, and we're a little worried about that politically. Now there is, people are worried about elections and employment and contamination of those sorts of things. Hasn't seemed to happen on a large scale yet, although we've had some issues in the US. And then safety, this is an existential debate that's reached the mainstream, to the point where these three guys are the guys who won the Turing Award a few years ago for their innovations in neural networks and deep learning. And these guys disagree on this point. So in the middle here, we've got Jeff Hinton, Yann LeCun, Yoshua Bengio. They shared the Turing Award, which is the kind of data science version of the Nobel. And Jeff in the middle here is freaking out. He made some public statements about he being really seriously worried about the advent of AI and the safety issues. The other two guys are not so worried. So this recent post from this week from Yann LeCun's Twitter feed, a reminder that people who disagree about very important things can still be good friends. So these guys have different levels of worry about the safety issues surrounding AI and generative AI. We have seen some jailbreak of reinforcement learning human feedback models, and researchers are looking at that. And one last comment here is it's becoming increasingly difficult to separate the value and strength of state-of-the-art models. And so when I say that Llama 2 has outperformed GPT-4, that's in my mind. It doesn't necessarily mean in your mind. So how do we really keep a track on what is the state of the art? And so if you look at the rise of large language models from way back in when Google sort of started this work. By the way, we've been using the BERT model for some years. It's in our Python toolkit, NLP toolkit. But this explosion on the GPT side here, all the way up to now where we've got Llama 2 being open source, GPT-4, BARD, and so on. That difference in, so GPT-3 had 175 billion with a B parameters and trained on 300 billion tokens. Llama 2 has 70 billion parameters, quite a lot of less parameters, but trained on 2 trillion tokens for a longer contextual period of time, and I think it's probably outperforming GPT-4 at the moment. But we are seeing a lot of adaptive radiation in this rise of the right-hand branch of that tree, which makes the state-of-the-art models to be a little more fit for purpose in different applications. So a couple of remarks. Again, I'm not the expert on this. I was just looking at what's happening in this area over the weekend in your world. And it just was fascinating to me that you start off with some structure that has efficacy and you destroy it over to get to noise, and then you model back up to find new similar structures that may have efficacy through that process. Now, a couple of things that I uncovered while I was looking at this EDM, and again, that's not a form of dance music, that is in the equivariant diffusion model. I see you're a tough crowd. I can't even get a laugh out of that. But you can start with this structure. You can turn it into randomness and then come back. And that's using a graph neural network. This base EDM model is equivariant in the sense that we treat molecules the same that are shifted in 3D space. You make an assumption. But this one, this structure-based drug design, does not make that assumption, and you can start with a protein structure, and you can generate novel molecules that are conditional on that, and this is built on top of the EDM framework, but the generative procedure here is conditioned on that individual target structure itself. Its 3D-ness, if you will, versus the base EDM. So if anybody's working in this area, would love to grab coffee with you. I think it just sounds fascinating as an application of the same sort of underlying neural networks that are behind large language models. And I'm imagining this, you could start front-ending this with an LLM, which, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about Copilot now. And this multimodality is the hot area. And so basically, what we're doing in our Copilot is you can have a conversation in words. When we started, we were giving back words. Now we're giving back Spotfire graphs as the result of your question in words. So that multimodality between words input and then structural outputs is something that is interesting. Now, we've been at this for a while, this whole area of image detection, natural language processing. This is my hometown, cameras pointing at the Harbour Bridge, and we're putting bounding boxes around this traffic. We're measuring velocity, we're counting the type of vehicle, and doing Spotfire analyses on what's happening through there. And by the way, I'm off to Italy next week. We run the road system in Italy through Autostrada per l'Italia. They've got several thousand cameras around the Italian roads that we're taking photographs and video feeds from and giving them analyses of what types of cars are driving on what types of roads, where there might be an accident, things like that. So that's actually a real use case. Now, in terms of, so that's video and image, but in terms of language, we released the Python toolkit some years ago, and we've just had a new version of that come out. And this allows you to bring text data in, do basic data prep like removing stop words, doing stemming, lemmatization, computing m-grams and words, entity recognition of words that you're really interested in, doing sentiment tagging. We've had BERT in this package for a while. And we're using that type of interaction to our first foray into the Spotfire Copilot was to allow you to ask questions about a graph that you have on your page. So this is from the energy sector. Pressure is on the y-axis, time is on the x-axis. When you do hydraulic fracturing, you sort of put pressure on the rock and you crack it, and then you put a little bit of sand inside of the cracks to let the gas escape. And so the pressure profile goes up and down as you apply pressure and crack the rock. And so in this case, we're saying, okay, this looks like this increase of pressure followed by this little bit down the bottom. This looks a bit different. What's going on there? Let me ask Copilot, what's the reason behind this high formation pressure in the hydrofracture process? And now we're having a conversation with the pre-trained model to get back, what does the internet think about that question and how does it relate to this graph? That was our starting point, was through a Python data function inside of Spotfire to call out to ChatGPT. Now, this, just to give you a little background on the NLP toolkit, these are some Airbnb reviews in Boston. We're going to analyze the text inside of those reviews. And here you see on the left-hand side, we got in Spotfire 10 this visualization mods in the flyout, data functions in the flyout. I find my NLP toolkit. This UI is automatically generated for you from the Python code, the parameters of the data function. I make some point-and-click choices there in terms of mapping my data in my analysis to those parts of the Python data function. I get back an analysis. These are Spotfire mods, visualization mods, a word cloud, a text card, automatically brush-linked into the Spotfire analysis of the Airbnb review locations, advanced geoanalytics at your fingertips. I click around and see what are the clean reviews and so on. And then all of that is automatically tracked in the data canvas. You don't build this like in other tools. It's built for you by Spotfire. You can see where I brought the data in. You can even drill down to the Python code that's doing the sentiment analysis. All of that is mapped in this user interface, and you can share this out with a business user. So as a data scientist, I write a bit of Python code, I stick it in the library, and the business user just gets to point and click and apply that code to the data that they have in their analysis, with everything, the lineage from when they started to when they finished, being available for you to hand this off to somebody else, and they can see what you've done, and they can apply that to their data. So we're very excited, as you can see, about the data functions that we've added to the product over the last couple of years. So with that as a preview and background, what are we doing in large language models and the Spotfire Copilot? Okay, so we have basically brought in all of our Spotfire documentation, user documentation. We have a Dr. Spotfire program we've been running for many years, where we do a monthly video on a particular topic that customers vote for. We do a weekly quick tip. We've got thousands of these videos, and we sort of brought those in as well. We brought in all of our community articles, and so we basically added all of that to make sure that the model, the large language model, knew about everything Spotfire that we could get our hands on. And so with that, we're able to take some questions that are specific to a Spotfire analysis, and we've engineered the prompts to answer user questions and avoid hallucinations. The way we did that is there's a temperature parameter that you can sort of turn off the pre-trained basic internet data and set the volume of the Spotfire data to be very high, and that helps to avoid hallucinations. So I'm going to run a video about some recent work that we're doing. And if folks are interested in this topic, there's a whole lot more that's a sort of rapidly evolving team effort here. But I'm going to start asking some questions of Spotfire, and it's going to bring in some results, and then I'm going to unpack that for you. Okay, so we're going to start off by saying, what is my best-selling product category? And it comes back and says, well, the product category is technology with this number of sales. That's your best-selling product. Here's a little chart of that. You want to bring it into your analysis that shows technology products being higher than in terms of sales than others. Okay, so show me sales over time by product category. Another thumbnail, you bring it in. You've got the different categories. You've got a line chart showing which ones are progressing over time. Okay, so visualize sales, product category, and order priority. Okay, so that we want to do a stack bar chart and show that. So this has been created you've asked questions, we've responded with a visual thumbnail. You click that into your analysis and you get this brush-linked version of your sales data. Now, it looks kind of like Mickey Mouse, kind of pretty simple graphs, right? But what is happening under the scenes of that, I'm just going to unpack what happened there in those few clicks. So show me sales over time by product category. There was a column in the data called sales total. So the LLM sort of mapped sales to that. That's pretty basic, right? There was no column that mentioned time in this analysis. There was a column called ordered data. So we're not doing fuzzy match here, we're doing conceptual match. So the way LLMs work is you basically set up this set of embeddings where the words are mapped so that similar words are close to each other in terms of meaning in the space of the embeddings. And so ordered data was the closest thing we found to the word time because that was a concept, that was an embedding that was close. Those words were close in the space of the large language model. So we used that as our interpretation of sales. We also binned the data by year, month, and quarter behind the scenes. And we chose the correct binning to represent those data. So we did that aggregation of the data to get ready for the Spotfire visual, and then we chose that aggregation, and we chose the visual, the bar chart or the line plot. So it might look like a simple graph, and it is a simple graph, but there was this number of steps that you had to do behind the scenes to prepare the data for that graph. And people who are hands-on Spotfire know that very well. Okay, I'm going to do this aggregation, I've got to get this whatever. So, but all of that is kind of taken out of the picture for you. So a little bit on the design of what we're doing here, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. If folks are interested, they can grab me on break. But as I mentioned, the YouTube videos for Dr. Spotfire are in here, all of our training manuals. Andrew Berridge on my team, a power user of Spotfire, we put his book in there. Who's actually seen Andrew's book, by the way? Oh, good, a few. Well, there's some more opportunity here. And so what we're doing is we're taking the question that someone asks. We're firstly doing a first pass through the large language model to understand what is that question. Are you asking for Spotfire help, custom help? Do you want a visualization back? Do you want some code generated? What is the category of your question? We're using the LLM to decide what the category is. And for each of those 5 or 6 categories, we have a pre-built template that will assemble the contextual data needed to answer that sort of question and sort of target the LLM on your question to bring back a result. So we firstly figure out the intent through the LLM, and then we go back and find the context and add that to the prompt. Okay, so what are we going to do here? It's a big project. I have a number of my folks working on this. And we've decided we want to put out like an open source version. So we're targeting by the end of this year to put it out in the community and have people play with it. So we're including a Spotfire SPK, which offers a side panel for you to have that conversation. And we're going to allow you to ask questions and figure out the intent. Are you asking about performing a task in Spotfire? Explaining the structure of data? Are you asking us to create a visualization? Asking to explain a visualization? You want us to create a data function? Do you want us to mine our user docs for context feedback? So those are the categories right now that we've been working on to provide these templates. And as I mentioned, we're going to put out the SPK, a DXP example. The orchestrator is really the brains of what we've been working on. We're going to put that out as in a container. And I hope that we can get some folks to play with that. Now, one thing I like about this model, and we have some customers that we're working closely with already is the same approach that we've used to put all the Spotfire documentation and have that tokenized as the context. We're allowing you to put your documentation in that as well. So if you want to add context about how to explain a visual from documents that you might have, we'll show you how to ingest those into the process. The other thing I like about this model, people worry about safety of their data and not being leveraged. So OpenAI has a bit of an issue on that, especially for some folks in Italy, as I understand. But the fact that we're allowing you and giving you the recipes to stand this up inside of your own cloud system. So when you already use a cloud system, you're happy about the security of that, and your data is safe inside of your cloud subscription. So this will all be inside of your cloud subscription, so that you have that safety concern fixed or addressed, and you also have the ability to bring your own documents into this. So we're trying sort of crawl before we run, I guess, and get some folks trying this out and seeing how you might do that. We're including all the pieces in the document handler. So the Lang chain is an important part of this offering. Milvus is our open source vector database. We're allowing you to configure the LLM to whatever cloud provider you use. So that's our plan. And just a few learnings that we've had from this. Leveraging prompt engineering, we have achieved a high level of customization without having to retrain a model. Yet, at least. The orchestrator is what is driving the system, using the user's intent and figuring out how to answer the questions. We found the LLM to be surprisingly creative. So you can ask a general question like, create an interesting visualization or create a cool data function. It will do something. It'll do something interesting. It'll do something cool. We've also found it to be a little dumb, actually. So you can give it a very specific question and it doesn't really answer it. You can try it again and it may. So it's a little bit quirky, shall we say. But definitely the prompt engineering has been the most challenging part of producing a practical Copilot system. Now, we do have a lot of partnerships. In fact, Cloud Software Group is a combination of Citrix and Tibco and all of the other products I showed earlier, and they are the biggest partner of Microsoft. So we do have Microsoft's attention. We did our early work with Microsoft. Microsoft didn't invest in AI like Google. They basically put a big investment into OpenAI and got 49% of that company, I think, or something. So their research in this was to invest in a company that was working in the area. But we had a great workshop with the folks from Azure, and we've been definitely working closely with them. AWS is quickly investing. You saw the Anthropic investment and their own internal models, and GCP was kind of these guys were the founders of all this kind of stuff. So they got sort of scooped, and they're getting definitely into it. We've been talking to them lately. Okay, so that's the kind of update on what's going on with generative AI. I also wanted to just give a little bit of an update on what we've been doing in base Spotfire, and certainly with visual analytics. That's our bread and butter. So we introduced Spotfire mods a couple of years ago. We're up to about 45 visualization types now in Spotfire, and you can see lots of specialized data viz. This is a JavaScript development environment. We have a really nice dev experience where you can have your JavaScript code up and you can have Spotfire up and you can make changes and automatically see how that's going to affect the mod that you're developing. We have a team of folks on my team developing these mods. We'd love to get input from you about certain visuals you'd like to see in the product that are not already there. Perhaps we can collaborate on that. We're collaborating with some folks. Are there any folks here from Bayer? Oh, very good. So yeah, we've been collaborating with some folks at Bayer, building some mods. So yeah, we're all ears about trying to extend the palette here into this vertical. And some of the mods are exciting. We've had a couple of versions of our network chart mod. This is actually an example. We worked a little bit with the DEA on the opioid crisis in the US, and this is a network representing all the way from the manufacturer to who wrote the script, where it was filled, who got it. These are the network of interactions around the distribution and usage of opioids. Things like we just we're releasing right now the violin mod, which is an extension of the box plot that allows multimodal distributions rather than just the interquartile range. This is used extensively with our manufacturing customers, both on the pharmaceutical side as well as in high-tech manufacturing for process variability, process capability. I did a lot of work in the early part of my career with Frank Harrell, who used to do a lot of outcomes analysis, and this was a favorite visualization of his. We've been looking at the joy plot, I call it, the ridgeline plot as it's more commonly known, where you might have a categorical variable and you want to see continuous distributions of those layered on top of each other. I call it the joy plot because it's it looks like the cover of the Joy Division Unknown Pleasures album. Who knows that album, by the way? Hey, I got more hands up on Joy Division than I did on Spotfire. That's interesting. No, this is definitely a favorite album of mine, and we've started internally to call it the Joy Plot. We've been experimenting with things like the newspaper style format. We had a big COVID project last year. I think it's still on our website, but the idea of having a long, skinny Spotfire analysis instead of multiple tabs is appealing to executives. So if you want to know more about how to do that, we actually put that feature in the product. Procter & Gamble's a big Spotfire user, and they had this big room devoted to Spotfire. They call it the Business Sphere in Cincinnati, and the room was a big, wide screen. And so we put a feature in early days of Spotfire where you could decide what pixel layout you wanted to author for. So the P&G guys could author for this big, wide screen. We put that in, and now we've been using it as a long, skinny thing to avoid multiple tabs for executives. So that's the Viz part. Obviously, that's a huge part of our offering. Data science and data engineering. We've been those data functions that I previewed earlier. We've got a whole collection of those now on our community site for doing data wrangling, machine learning. Geospatial is a big deal in this area. And you can, like I say, once you've written the Python code or you get it from our community site, when you click it into your analysis, the UI of these things is automatically generated for the business user. We just recently announced at our analytics forum that we're putting the underlying data science machine learning code from all those data functions into the open source. So there's a Spotfire DSML package that we published up to PyPy. If you want to go look at the underlying code from all those data functions or play with it, you're welcome to do that. And then we've just added a time series analysis. We've done a new release of the Python toolkit, and we've added a time series analysis that allows you to basically pull data from a common systems like OSIsoft. You build out data prep pieces, do imputation, whatever, and then take that into a Spotfire Viz. So those are definitely some areas of investment. Explainability for models is another area of investment where we've added the Shapley analysis and others into the fold there. And so if you put all those things together, this is a quick video on the analysis of wind patterns in Texas. These green triangles here are weather stations. And I'm going to show you how to quickly do a contour plot on that through a data function, and how to add a custom viz for looking at wind direction. So here we go. So I'm going to just sort of start playing with this data on wind speed and distribution, types of wind that you have from the different weather stations and so on. I'm going to bring in this geospatial contour plot to put a contour on that chart. I'm going to map this data to the inputs that I have in my data set, like the latitude and longitude are the columns in this data set. I'm going to map those in to the arguments of where to get the points that I want to smooth on the map. Basically, as I build those things in on that automatically generated interface, I get back the contours. They're going to land, I think, as a set of geometries. And I'm going to drag those geometries on top of the map chart, and then I get the contour plot. So quick, automatically linked into the analysis. You can click around on different parts of the data to look at the different seasons of wind direction. And now I'm going to grab a rose chart from the menu. This is a Spotfire mod. It allows you to look at 360. Again, I'm going to map that into the data that I have in this Spotfire analysis to get an idea of wind direction as a function of everything else that's in the analysis. So the thing I like about this demo is that we used a mod from that little histogram icon, and we used a Python, an R data function from the FX flyout, and just add those like a point-and-click operation into your analysis. And you don't have to build your own mods or data functions. As I showed, we've got a lot of those on our community site. You download them, you put them in your library, and then there's a little button on the flyout that you can browse the library and pin the function to your Spotfire version so that they're now point and clickable from the flyout into your analysis. So a very convenient way of getting access to a big palette of those. So I think the final piece here is of what we've been working on, in my team at least, is this idea of Spotfire apps. And so we want to create guided applications for you to bring your data into for certain use cases. And again, if you've got some use cases here that you want us to work on, we're happy to do that, but we have things like for statistical process control, wafer map patterns in the manufacturing industry, oil and gas completions, anomaly analysis, hospital readmission, so on. We do play around sometimes with things like the NBA draft. We've got a bunch of basketball fans on my team, and the CEO of TIBCO used to own the Golden State Warriors, and now he owns the Sacramento Kings. So we've got a long lineage of basketball in my data science team. But you can see here how the map chart is very differentiated from our competitors. You can see as I click around on this automatic trellising of map chart analyses, in this case for wafer maps, finding patterns. In this case, a ring pattern, which is not good for yield of a manufacturing process, but being able to kind of drill around and have automatic trellis displays and similarity pattern searches and so on the map chart is something we've spent a bit of time working on. And then in terms of other apps, this idea, one we did was looking at equipment and converting sound waves into an image pattern, and then fitting some unsupervised learning models to detect the anomalies in those images, figure out some analysis of that. And a recent feature we have is to do actions. So if you find an anomaly in your Spotfire analysis, how do you call out to a system that's outside of Spotfire and do something about that anomaly, notify somebody to go and fix that piece of equipment, for example. So Spotfire actions is a big thing. So I mentioned we just did our analytics forum. Just a few highlights from that. You can go to theanalyticsforum.com if you want to go check out some of these talks. We had this great gentleman, Jan Willem Tulp, who's a visualization expert from the Netherlands. If there's folks from the Netherlands, maybe you know Jan Willem. Wonderful guy, has got an incredible set of applications he's built for Scientific American, World Economic Forum, a lot of Dutch companies as well. But really an inspiring talk. We chose him because he's a JavaScript developer, and we wanted to inspire people of what they could do in Spotfire mods using the types of things that he does. But there's a bunch of customers here. We did have Moderna speaking about, we do their manufacturing process, continuous process verification, statistical process control, things like that. We had some ag customers, a lot of energy customers speaking, ASML, so yeah, there might be some customer talks of interest for you there. We did have our collaborator from National University Health System in Singapore, he's a big Llama 2 fan, and he's got a lot of patient notes, doctor's notes, that he's been doing AI for remote management, care management of patients. So that's really was a nice talk in your area. And I was asked to do just a few words on what is our statement of direction. So let me wrap up with that. And so really there's 4 parts to the direction of what we're doing in Spotfire going forward. Self-service visual analytics, that's obviously our bread and butter. We continue to invest pretty heavily there. Integrated AI, ML, stats stuff. Certainly we've got a lot of expertise there, and we love to work on that kind of stuff. Building analytic applications, how do we make that easier for you to do some of the things that I showed you that we do in my team? How do we make that an easier process for you to create those? That's a big differentiator for us, is the ability to create analytic applications. That one feature of building a Spotfire analysis and then save as to library and pushing that out to thousands of users, that is a huge feature that we put in the very first incarnation of the product. But we literally have Spotfire deployments with hundreds of thousands of users and thousands of DXP files in the libraries, and making those available to people to do critical business decision making on a daily basis. That at a scalable level, that is really just a huge thing that we do in Spotfire that nobody else does. And then investments in government and management. So a quick slide on each of those 4 things. We are introducing a new authoring UX. It's web-based, and we're kind of bringing the capability of business author and Spotfire analyst together. I know that Dan and others have been previewing this in Spotfire Labs, but this is a whole context-sensitive menu. When you choose a certain visualization, this changes. It's all cloud-enabled, so it's not going to require an install. That'll just be automatically updated through the client. And we're adding also, to go with that, more data access and wrangling in a web-style interface. We recognize the importance of cloud-based data sources, and we're trying to make that easier for the end user to create their own connectors for in-database analytics, while also maintaining our sort of superiority in memory analytics. So this is going to be a big area. It always is a big area for us, visual analytics, and making it more unified between our various cloud and web and analyst environments. I'm super excited about what we've been doing in data science, obviously, over the last few years, and that whole area I showed you where you can automatically generate a UI from your Python code and then track everything that you've done in the data canvas, and other people can use it. So we're extending this, so not just are we going to generate these types of the data canvas, we're going to allow you to edit that and build that as well. And so if you want to create your own pipeline for data science and data prep, this is going to become editable for you to build that yourself. So in addition to that visual idea, we're also going to get deeper into the IDE. I mentioned we do have that idea of having IDE and Spotfire side by side for a developer. We're going to double down on that and allow you to be able to build your own Python and R code side by side inside of a Spotfire. So lots of exciting things coming up in that area. We're excited about what we did with actions, to be able to take an action from inside of a Spotfire analysis, and we're going to double down on that to allow you to build guided workflows. So those analytic applications I showed, like the one where we were doing the sound wave anomaly detection, we're going to make it easier for you to build those, and easier for you to apply actions based on insights that you get from a Spotfire analysis. So that's going to continue that work. And then finally, governance and manageability. As I mentioned, we're used by some very, very big companies with very, very big deployments. Thousands of users, tens of thousands of users, tens of thousands of files and so on in the library. How do we make it easier for people to find things that they want to use in the library? So we're working on a bit of a recommendation system for the library, so that you want to find a certain thing, you're interested in a certain area, we will tag things with metadata in the library and we'll suggest, okay, you use this DXP, maybe you might want to look at this one. How do we make it easier for people to find and use things in the item? Not just DXP analysis files, but data connectors, all the artifacts, Python functions and so on. So this is a big initiative. This is on the front burner. If there's people interested in trying that out, we're going to go into preview on that pretty soon, the analytics catalog. And then in terms of admin, I really like our admin stuff. As I say, I really love the fact that you can do all this point-and-click stuff and build these sophisticated applications, save us to web player and automatically deploy it, and all the Python packages are all there, the whole thing works, it's just amazing. In fact, one of the talks at the Analytics Forum, someone was saying that they prefer to do Python development inside of Spotfire than they do outside of Spotfire. Because of all the things you get for free, the deployment of it, you know, that automatic deployment to thousands of users is pretty amazing. But we are going to make more investments here on observability, integration with other back-end systems, scalability, security. This we are going to continue to give a makeover to the admin back-end of Spotfire. And I do encourage you to put ideas into the ideas portal. It's not a black box. When you vote for an idea or submit an idea, you get updated on what's the progress of that, you know, how that's happening. You know, you can follow and get understand enhancement requests to a certain idea. We have been making some decent progress. I think 6 out of the top 10 ideas have been implemented in the last few years. We just had some advisory board meetings both in Europe and the US. And we had about 10 customers in each come to that, and they were all quite happy that their ideas had been implemented over the last several years. So that was good to get that feedback. Like I say, even you can understand where it is in the queue, how likely we are to implement it in the coming days, weeks, months. Now, if you want to get that, please use your company email. If there's just a Google email address, that doesn't really get on our radar as much as if it's got company.com. So I do encourage you to use your proper address there if you want to get proper feedback. We're also starting to get more open about our plans. So if you go to our website, you can see what is coming in Spotfire 14. So if you want to find out about that, we're releasing it to folks like Dan, but you know, if you want, as customers, you want to find out what's happening, it's becoming more transparent. And so that's it. Happy to, and really want to thank the folks at Revity for having me come and talk to you, and appreciate being part of this community. Thank you very much.